Hello! Welcome to my channel where I post and talk about anything that interests me, usually in line with art and philosophy of some kind. Today's topic is making art within a niche community. Within fandom, you'll find smaller niches and communities based on specific topics. Heck, sometimes you'll find a fandom so small, it is the niche. And today, I want to talk about what it's like to be an artist in such a specific community. For me, this community is the Watamote fandom, a small manga which had an anime for one season before it got cancelled, which perpetually warped how people see the main character. I stumbled into drawing Tomoko, the main antag, girl freak, back in 2022 when I first watched the anime. As an autistic person, I latched onto the character and property since then, making it one of the only things I drew for 2 years now. Watamote follows the story of a girl named Tomoko with an unrealistic view on the world due to her only exposure to teenhood being through video games and whatever she found online. She's stupid, socially anxious, and hypersexual about anything she's talking about. And she's my little scrimblow baby blorbo. Later on, I started reading the manga and only fully caught up all 220 chapters this January. I've since begun a reread because the brainworms are that intense. I'd say the anime is pretty popular, but the manga has a lot smaller of a community. Especially now that it's 220 chapters long, it's pretty daunting for the average anime watcher to get into. I highly recommend getting into it though, especially with all the new characters. Now that we've established what Watamote is, I can go more into what it's like making artwork for such a niche fandom like this, and like many others, the pros, cons, and surprises I found along the way. Part 1. The pros. Now I know a lot of you want to know the possible profitability of working in a niche, but that'll have to come later. First, I want to talk about pros relating to stuff like engagement, community, and personal fulfillment. Making works for a very specific topic is an easy way to garner a community dedicated to that topic, especially through stuff like tags or fan accounts for the media resharing your work. The communities built in niche fandoms are also usually pretty tight-knit and focused on supporting one another. If you're a consistent fan of the media, you'll have no problem finding dedicated fans. Art within one niche also makes it easy to ride out times of art block because when in doubt, just draw your blurbo. Now we can get into the money. Making art in a niche, especially one with minimal merch or region-locked merch, means that you can corner that market and be the sole provider for merchandise of that fandom. For example, I'm one of the only artists on Etsy who sells Watamote merch. Generally, fans are also more eager to get more merch and more expensive merch, because it's the only merch they can get. It can be really lucrative, if you didn't live in South Africa like me and have to pay out of pocket for all of my shipping. Regardless of that anguish, I found selling for more niche fandoms to be super fun with customers who are really patient and caring. Niche communities are happy to just have any merchandise they can access regardless of who happens to be selling it. And I'm happy to be one of the providers for it. I'm a fan of many smaller communities of older cartoons and smaller shows, and as an animation fan, it's always inspiring to see people will be willing to support what they care about. Cons. Now when I say cons, it's more specific to the artist and general fandom nature, rather than the community you might find yourself in. If you move away from the fan art you're making, you're probably going to see a drop in engagement or a loss of followers. This just comes with the territory of fan art specific accounts, sadly. Fans are usually there more for the content than the creator, if that makes sense. If you draw My Little Pony fan art every day and then suddenly post, I don't know, a study of a car, unless that car has Princess Twilight slapped on it, you're not exactly going to see a lot of engagement from it. This can sometimes lead to feeling stagnant in your art or bored with drawing the same thing over and over again. I personally take it as a fun challenge to try and see what creative way I can depict the character next, giving me a restriction on one end to help me experiment with another aspect of the piece. But it can really depend on personal taste and interest. If you fall out of love or interest in a fandom, it doesn't really inspire you to keep creating fan art for the sake of it. Engagement and following is also limited to the amount of people who are in the fandom or care about the subject you're depicting. If your fandom is made up of 10 people, it doesn't matter how engaging and dedicated those people are, it's going to be harder to find growth from outsiders unless your art has an external appeal. This can also lead into fandom drama. Every fandom has its bad eggs, but a rift in a smaller fandom can feel tremendously more dividing. If you get into a fight with Sparkle Bunny 244 about whether or not Tomoko was better before or after the school trip arc, and they're friends with like 2/3 of the fandom, it's going to cause some issues. This is why I usually try to keep my opinions on manga events and such to myself and or to close friends outside of the fandom, to ensure the community doesn't implode on itself. If you're newer to the fandom, you may also find yourself at the front of people calling you a fake fan due to the lack of knowledge on the topic that you're depicting, and or people who know less than you trying to seem high and mighty. Once again, these are usually a select few, but it can seem more prominent if the fandom is smaller. So in the end, is it worth it to make art for niche fandoms? I'd say if you're passionate about whatever you're making fan art for, then yes, but always consider who the fandom is made up of and whether you care about what you're making. Bad faith actors will always try to ruin your fun, and making a variety of art, even if you don't post it, is always a good idea to stop burnout. Thank you so much for viewing this little guy find an excuse to ramble about an anime girl and disguise it as an interesting discussion. I hope to see you in the next .mp4 file on this hell site. And as always, :3.